Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into Gaz Weather. It's on this late spring bank holiday Monday. We're doing another historic weather video for this late spring bank holiday Monday. This bank holiday, we're going to be looking at the summer of 2012, which was an exceptionally unsettled and exceptionally wet summer. But it came after a prolonged spell of dry weather. So we're actually going to start this in the winter of 2011-2012 because you really need to go back to winter to set the scene in terms of the huge flip that takes place from winter and early spring into the second half of the spring and then into the summer. Very interesting and contrasting period of weather through 2011 and into 2012. So I'll get back for you very shortly and just say a big thank you for tuning in on this bank holiday Monday. I'm always blown away that people want to spend a bit of time with Gaz Webbins on their late spring bank holiday. So as ever, big thank you to all of you for tuning in on your bank holiday Monday. It's going to be a long video, as always with the historic videos, so later on it'll be kept in the historic archive at Gaz Webbins. It'll be given its own page, and you'll be able to find the link to that on within the historic section at Gaz Webbins, so you'll be able to watch the video on demand whenever you would like to do that. I've got to say a big thank you to WeatherCentral.d and also to Trevor Harley for all of the input in this video. So the charts are coming from Weather Central, and most of the information that you hear within this video is coming from Trevor Harley's personal weather website. So I'm kind of like the smallest part of all of this. I'm just like the narrator of the story, if you like. What really brings the historic videos together is the charts combined with the information. So a big thank you to Weather Central and a big thank you to Trevor Harley. Alright, so let's get on with it. I'm going to begin on the first day of December 2011. Now, December 2011 is a very mild month indeed. It has a central in temperature of 6.0. It's a very westerly month as well. With quite a few bouts of gale force winds. And what a contrast to the December to remember just 12 months before. So December 2010 is the coldest December since 1890, very nearly the coldest December within the entire CET record going back to 1659. It has a negative CET number, I think 0.7, minus 0.7. So December 2010 was a freezing cold, severely cold and snowy December to remember, and what a contrast 12 months later with the very mild December 2011. Trevor Harley writes, a very westerly month with frequent gales, but second most westerly December on record. Overall, it was warmer than average, making it the mildest December since 2006, although it was warmest in southern England and coolest in Northern Ireland. So this really on the 1st of December 2011 is indicative of the month. Gale force winds and outbreaks of rain, and we keep gale force winds going through the first week. Periodic bouts of gales, deep areas of low pressure rattling in Baltic Atlantic. This is before they started naming storms, of course. So very on the 12th of December 2011, looking really wet and windy, low pressure crashing in off the Atlantic, and this is a notable bout of gales again on the 13th and through to the 14th of the month. Trevor Harley writes that there was a phenomenal gale on the 8th of December, actually. So we can go back to that. This area of low pressure just here produces a very severe gale on the 8th of December. We just keep these gale force winds going as we head into the middle part of the month. A gust of 165 miles an hour was recorded there. So phenomenal gale causes widespread disruption on Thursday the 8th, especially into central and southern Scotland. Bridges shut. A gust of 165 miles an hour is recorded on Cairngorm, and this very unsettled, wet and windy spell of weather continues through into the middle of the month And we go on with it actually into Christmas. This is Christmas Eve, looking pretty wet and windy. Christmas Day also looking very mild, long fetch southwesterly winds, but also pretty wet and windy too. And Boxing Day rounds it all off, 2011. Again, very mild in the south in particular, with those long fetch southwesterly winds and quite a bit of rain up in the north and in the west too. Trevor Harley writes, in terms of the temperature, the highest temperature of the month was 15.5, recorded in Aberdeenshire on Boxing Day of December 2011, so exceptionally mild. Relatively dry though, you'll notice, in the south. High pressure is very close to southern parts of the country as we go between Christmas and New Year. So it's not an overly wet month actually across southern parts of the country. But it is particularly wet and windy up in the north. Northern Ireland, by the way, had its warmest Christmas Day on record with 14.3 at County Down. Also, it's very windy. There was a gust of 101 miles an hour at Sellerness in Shetland, and severe gales across Orkney and Shetland over this Christmas period. Well, that's how we go into 2012, still looking wet and windy, low pressures out to the north and the west, bring these bouts of heavy rain in from off the Atlantic Ocean. Again, not necessarily all that wet down in the south, but certainly wild, tightly packed ice bars, low pressure driving in from off the Atlantic. Trevor Hardy writes that January 2012 is a mixed month. It's mostly westerly. It has a very windy start, as you can see from that chart on the 3rd of January. Has a CET of 5.4. There were, and that's the mildest since January 2008. There were severe gales across the north on the 3rd. So again, this area of low pressure here producing a real gale from the 3rd through to the 4th of January 2012. Well, then we head up in towards the middle part of the month, and again you'll see this ridge of high pressure building to the south. That's turning southern parts of the country drier, still unsettled up to the north, but slowly but surely things are drying out down across the south. This high pressure becomes more influential actually as we go into the middle part of the month. So Trevor Harley writes that it was particularly mild this month in the southeast. Temperatures were about average across Scotland. The highest temperature of the month is 13.9, occurring on the 18th of January. The lowest is minus 10.9 in Aberdeenshire, a boy in Aberdeen, I think, actually, on the 16th. This area of high pressure builds up across the country. It's within a mild air mass, but it does create a little bit of an inversion. So that's what produces that hard frost in the north around the middle part of the month and gives us our lowest temperature of the month. I mean, upper air temperatures are looking very mild indeed. But classic inversion sort of conditions mean that down on the surface it's a lot colder. But that doesn't last very long. Very quickly we're back into these southwesterly winds, and so on the 18th we get our temperature going up to 14 degrees in Exeter from these long fetch southwesterly winds. Now, as heading towards the final week of the month, things start to change. We've got this area of high pressure down to our southwest. Low pressure is out to the northwest. And this high pressure starts to build to our east as we get through to 26th of January 2012. We've got the Scandinavian, actually Siberian high coming into play. This is Siberian high, but it's ridging into Scandinavia. This is bringing severely cold air into the east of Europe, while the northwest of Europe was mild through the winter of 2011-2012. Actually, the east and the southeast of Europe was very, very cold, freezing cold down in the Balkans, brutally cold during this winter in the southeastern corner of Europe. We do have people watching the weather videos from the Balkans, and if anyone wants to post a comment about how severe it was through this winter in the Balkans during early 2012, then please do so. It was very, very cold indeed. So here we go, the high pressure increasingly influential to our northeast. That's bringing us out of the wet and windy weather, of course, so we're losing the rain. Things are turning a lot drier, and dry conditions will now dominate right the way through until the end of March, really. But this area of high pressure taking over, turning wind into the east, cold air starting to be dragged in from the east. Trevor Hardy writes that so it was a mostly westerly month with a windy beginning. There was a severe gale in the north on the 3rd. It was anticyclonic in the middle and end of the month with a very cold end too, and that cold end is produced by this Scandinavian high turning winds into the east and into the southeast, blocking off the Atlantic. Here comes the easterlies. There's the upper air temperatures on the 31st of December 2012. So cold air has invaded from the east and started to look severely cold across eastern parts of Europe. So that's a classic setup for the first day of February. High pressure is dominating across Scandinavia. Bitterly cold easterly winds are bringing the air right away across Europe from Siberia. Look how severely cold those upper air temperatures are across the eastern part of Europe. And that cold air starts to edge further towards us as we get into the 3rd of February. Look how severely cold the upper air temperatures are across Scandinavia, central and eastern parts of Europe. So this is what Trevor Hardy writes about February 2012. A very anticyclonic month with some extremes in temperature. Overall slightly colder than average. It has a central temperature of 3.8. Average England and Wales rainfall is just 31.0 millimetres, 47% of average, making this the driest February since 1998. Shoeburyness in Essex records just 6 millimetres in total all month. It was slightly less sunny than average of 79 hours, though it was the sunniest February since 1998. There was some widespread freezing rain on Thursday the 9th across the west and snow in the east. So this is a near miss big freeze, actually. This is a near miss beast from the east. We've got that severely cold pool of air sitting across central and eastern parts of Europe that we had there on the 3rd, but look what happens on the 4th. That high pressure just begins to sink a little bit, taking the severest of the cold air into more eastern and southern parts of Europe and in central Europe. So there we go with the cold pool. Notice how it's just sort of flirting with the southeast corner. I mean, this is cold. It's taking temperatures by night almost to minus double digits and by day barely above freezing. But just a very subtle difference would have meant we would start to pull in these extremely cold upper air temperatures that are sitting across northern and central parts of Europe. 5th of February brings a feature in from the west. I think that's a bit of a snow event that moves in from the west on the 5th. But again, it just keeps the coldest of those upper air temperatures at bay across Scandinavia and then down into central and eastern parts of Europe. Brutally cold there, but we remain just on the periphery of it. High pressure then re-establishing itself through the 7th and into the 8th, so still really cold with those winds coming in from the east, but by this point we have lost the worst of those brutal cold upper air temperatures. Those coldest temperatures have actually sunk into eastern parts of Europe. The 9th and through to 10th is interesting. There's a weather system coming in from west into that cold air. And as this system moves eastwards, it produces freezing rain in the west. It produces a snow event across eastern parts of the country there from the 9th through to the 10th. And then after that, it goes really, really cold in terms of the surface temperatures. This high pressure kind of like re-establishes. So this is what Trevor Hardy writes. There was some widespread freezing rain on Thursday the 9th in the west and snow in the east. The snow was followed by a severe frost in the east with a minimum get this, of minus 15.6 degrees Celsius at Holbeach and minus 18.3 at Chesham, which is in Buckinghamshire, on the night of the 10th through to the 11th. That is the lowest February minimum temperature since 1986. Possibly that has been beaten during BCE, I'm not sure, but minus 18.3 as a minimum temperature is extremely cold across southern parts of England. That was followed by a maximum temperature of just minus 5.4 at Coningsby, Lincolnshire, on Saturday the 11th. I'm sure people living in the east and the southeast remember these freezing cold temperatures within an otherwise very, very mild winter. Quite strange. It just goes to show how even within some of our mildest winters we can get extremely cold weather temporarily. Excuse me. Well, we're heading to the middle part of February and the pattern starts to change. High pressure then begins to re-establish over top of the country. We're cutting off those easterly winds. Still very cold across the eastern and southeastern parts of Europe, mind you, still brutally cold there. But for us, it's this area of high pressure repositioning coming out to our south that changes the weather completely. In the second half of February, turns exceptionally mild. So Trevor Hardy writes it was much milder from the third week of the month. Just a bit later, after the extreme cold temperatures, on Thursday the 23rd of February, we saw some widespread high temperatures, we saw some widespread high temperatures with warm sunshine, culminating in 18.7 at Coles Hill, Birmingham, just failing to beat record of 1998. So it went from minus 18 as a minimum temperature on the night of the 10th and the 11th, night of 10th to the 11th of February, to plus 18 Celsius maximum temperature on the 23rd. Only in the UK can you get those very, very extremes of temperature in such a short space of time. This area of high pressure down to our south that drags up this exceptionally mild southwesterly wind there. And there's the upper air temperatures, warm upper air temperatures, bathing the country on the 23rd of February. And then heading into closing days of the winter of 2011-2012, the high pressure builds up across the country. And this high pressure then is in for the next month, really. So we go into, it's already been a very dry period, actually, up to this point, although we did have the wet and windy weather in December. Overall, it's very dry through much of 2009, much of 2010, much of 2011 too. They are very dry years overall, quite cold winters, of course, other than 2011-2012, but generally quite dry. And the culmination of this sort of 3-year spell of dry weather is March of 2012, where I have this big area of high pressure just dominating pretty much throughout the whole of the month. So Trevor Hardy writes that overall this is a very warm, dry and sunny March, although not record-breakingly so. It was particularly warm in eastern Scotland, where it's 3 degrees above average, has a CET of 8.3, and in the 100 years before this March, that means that only the Marches of 1938, 1948, 1957, 1990 and 1997 were warmer. In a fine warm anticyclonic spell, the new highest temperature for Scotland is reached on Saturday the 25th of March, which is going to get to 22.8 Celsius at Fivy Castle in Aberdeen. That record only lasts one day though, because on the next day, 26th, we record 23.2 at Cromdale in Grantown-on-Spey. That recorded on Monday the 26th of March. And then that record is going to tumble on the 27th of March when a boy gets to 23.6, the highest temperature anywhere in the UK during this month. So, very anticyclonic month. Here we go on the 3rd of March. We're having a go at building high pressure across Scandinavia, but against blocking these areas of low pressure coming in from the Atlantic. That attempt at the Scandinavian highs to get back to those colder east winds doesn't come off, and by the 10th of March, we're back to the high pressure reaching to our south again. And then look at this 14th of March, the high pressure is just in over the top of the country. Weakens a little bit on the 17th, tries to allow in a slightly more unsettled flow, but really that's scraping the barrel. And we're back to high pressure again as we go from the 20th through to the 23rd. High pressure well and truly in control, all while bringing the air in from the south, all the while looking really mild and warm. These are the historic record-breaking temperatures of the 25th, 26th and 27th, caused by this big 1,035 millibar area of high pressure sitting over the top of the country, bringing all of this dry and warm weather that we have through the final week of March, almost summer-like conditions through the final week of March 2012. And again, exceptionally dry. That's the other thing about this March. So Trevor Hardy writes that rainfall average was just 30.8 millimetres, which is just 43% of the average. It was also very dry, that's England and Wales. It was also very dry for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Lossiemouth and Kinloss both recorded only 4.8 millimetres all month. It's also very sunny. England and Wales, sunshine totalled at 187 hours, 160% of average, making it the sunniest March since 1929. 1907, also slightly sunnier. Southampton saw an incredible 210 hours of sunshine, although poor old Lerwick only got 68 hours of sunshine. Not sure how dry this is. Trevor Hardy doesn't say how dry this month is, but it must be one of the driest Marches on record that we've ever received, I would have thought. However, the final day of the month shows signs of a change. This is a very important change for the summer. Yes, we are coming on to the summer. That high pressure drifting northwards and westwards, turning the winds into the north. And so after all of these westerly winds and all of the dry, warm weather that we've had up to the end of March 2012, a change to northern blocking. That high pressure is retrogressing, going northwards and westwards as opposed to eastwards. It's retrogressing towards Greenland. Cold northerly winds are beginning to move down around the side of that high pressure. So we go through to April 2012, and what a contrast this month is. It has a centering temperature of just 7.2. Trevor Hardy writes, an unusual situation in which April is significantly cooler than March. A cold, wet month, a month dominated by low pressure and winds frequently from northerly quarter. It's the coldest April since 1989, can you believe? So that high pressure continues to drift northwards, allowing these cold northerly winds to start to extend southwards here on the 2nd of April. And here comes this area of low pressure on the 3rd. This brings heavy rain and also heavy snow. Notice the northern blocking, the high pressure around Greenland, Iceland, with this low pressure developing underneath it. -5 Celsius isotherm is digging into Scotland there, turning precipitation with that low pressure readily to snow. And then that low pressure by the 4th of April becomes a major feature across the country, bringing heavy rain, the first heavy rain that many of us down in the south had received for many, many weeks. Actually, it was almost like a drought up to this point. It was quite extraordinary that we'd had kind of like a winter and early spring drought, but now we are into exceptionally wet conditions with this area of low pressure. And also cold winds are digging in from the north or northeast. And this is a very, very important change because it almost sort of sets the scene for what's going to happen for the rest of the summer, actually. So this change at the beginning of April is very, very important to the overall storyline of the summer of 2012. Trevor Hardy writes, There was a widespread snowfall in the north on the 2nd and 3rd of April 2012, and down in the south it was also very wet. So England and Wales this month averaged out at 140.5 millimetres of rain. That's 216% of average, with only April 2000 and April 1756 wetter since records began for England and Wales. It was also very wet in Scotland. Loscombe in Somerset records 290 millimetres of rain this month. Absolutely phenomenally wet, and it's also a very dull month. It has 87% of average sunshine, making it the dullest April since 1998. This low pressure widely produces 20 to 40 millimetres of rain across England and Wales from the 3rd to the 4th of April 2012, with heavy snow up in the north. There's been -5 Celsius ice firm digging in across the country. And then the rest of the month just really, really unsettled and quite cold too. High pressure continued to be sitting out to west of us. We continue to bring in the showery and unsettled westerly winds, deepening area of low pressure there on the 9th through to the 10th of April, bringing more bouts of heavy rain in from the Atlantic. We're on the cold side of the jet stream, that's been pushed southwards, so just thoroughly cold, wet, miserable conditions heading into the middle of April 2012. And another really big area of low pressure, 980 millibars, is very impressive for the 18th of April, rattling in from the west, bringing further bouts of really, really wet weather across the country. And these low pressures continue to race in from the Atlantic through to the final week of April 2012 too. And we end the month with this area of low pressure across France pushing northwards. That's bringing yet more really heavy rain, but also some warmer temperatures. So Trevor Harley writes that the highest temperature of the month was 19.7 degrees at Kew Gardens on this day, the 3rd of April 2012, caused by that low pressure sucking up some warm air. Actually, the core of the warmth is well to our east, but it does suck up some warmer air just to our south with that area of low pressure. But that low also brings yet more bouts of really heavy rain. I think there was thunderstorms in with that as well. By the way, the lowest temperature this month is -8.2 at Braemar. That occurs much earlier, where we've got the snow on the 5th. That's a pretty impressive minimum temperature for April, and a maximum of just plus 0.3 degrees, so basically around freezing all day at Carter Bar in the Borders on the 3rd. Again, that's with the snow on the 3rd and the 4th of April. That's quite impressive, I have to say, for April. But what a contrast in April to May, in April to March, I should say. So we move through to May 2012, and this is another interesting month because it basically gives us our one true shot of summer. During the summer of 2012. The one true shot of summer really happens in May. We start the month, though, still very unsettled. High pressure out to the northwest, low pressure down to our south, so looking really, really mixed here. This high pressure goes back towards Green, so again, northern blocking as we go through the first week of May 2012, pulling in these cool northeasterly winds. Trevor Harley writes, overall, a fairly average month. However, the first 3 weeks were cold, changeable and dull, particularly so in the southeast. But the month is going to be saved by a fine, sunny and very warm final week. Central temperature is 11.7, so not too far from average. It would have been a colder than average May had it not been for the final week. So again, looking quite unsettled and pretty cold too. Southerly tracking jet streams, northern blocking, low pressure on a southerly track, so still more heavy outbreaks of rain here as we go into the second week of May 2012, before then the high pressure begins to develop out to our west. That starts to settle us down across England and Wales. Anyway, not a heat wave, but it starts to settle us down, turns us a little bit drier and warmer in the south there for the middle part of May, although up in the north, still unsettled with those westerly winds still coming. And then we're going to quite a stormy spell there on the 14th of May. So that's an impressive area of low pressure for May. That's a proper storm to the north of Scotland. That brings gale force winds to northern parts of the country, more heavy bouts of rain too. Also much cooler air surging southwards on the 15th of May, further showers and longer spells of rain, and then we've got this next low coming up from the south. That's bringing more wet weather into southern parts of the country, and so this cool and unsettled spell just continues until we get from the 22nd to the 21st. It happens very suddenly, but all of a sudden the low pressure just dramatically weakens with the jet stream, and we finally get this ridge building from Spain through the UK and going up to Scandinavia, and this sets us up for a much warmer spell of weather. So with this, Trevor Harley writes, the highest temperature of the month is 30.9 degrees. That's very impressive, 86 Fahrenheit, almost getting on to 87 Fahrenheit actually, I think. In the Highlands on the 25th, and that's a new maximum temperature record for Scotland in May. We also achieved 29.3 in the Highlands and 29.0 at Morayshire on the 27th too. So quite widely, temperatures sort of high to mid to high 20 Celsius widely across the country through this final week of May as high pressure takes over across Scandinavia, and we bring up this much warmer air from the south. There's the upper air temperature showing much warmer air pushing northwards across the country, and we settle into this very warm spell of weather from the 25th through to the closing days of the month. Again, there's the upper air temperatures plus 10 Celsius. Ice firm is now covering the country. Really warm, hot temperatures, bags of sunshine too. Maybe the promise for a really good summer. Maybe that cold and wet April was just a blip, and maybe this is it. This is going to take us into a fine, dry and very warm summer. Will it? Well, maybe not, because by the time you get to the 28th, we've got retrogression again. Look at that. The high pressure is across, let's go back. The high pressure is over there, over Scandinavia on the 25th. But as we get through 28th, that high pressure is retrogressing again. Going to Greenland and Iceland, going against the zonal flow. This is telling us that something is going on within the atmosphere that is rather different to what you normally expect in a typical west-east pattern. Upper air temperatures at this point are still very warm across the country. We're still seeing temperatures kind of like sort of mid to upper 20s Celsius. But very gradually, this northern blocking that we had in April into the early part of May is starting to become a little bit more influential, and there we are on the final day of May 2012. So we're poised, really. We're blocking to our north, the Azores high trying to ridge into the south, and a deep area of low pressure sitting in the Atlantic, maybe threatening something rather ominous for the summer. Well, we've talked for half an hour, and we've got to summer 2012 now, so I'm going to pause the video there, and when we come back, we're going to discuss that thoroughly wet, cold, and miserable summer of 2012. I'm going to go and have a little drink of water. We'll meet back very shortly. Okay, we're back. We're ready to resume our historic weather video, looking at 2012, particularly the summer of 2012. So the storyline up to this point, we got to the first day of June 2012, so the first day of the summer of 2012. The storyline, as we've established in the first part of the video, was that the winter 2011-2012 was very westerly, very Atlantic driven in the first half, and then so very mild, and then colder but also a lot drier in the second half, with a February that was very cold in the first half of the month, brutally cold across eastern and southeastern parts of Europe, and then really warm in the second half of February 2012. And that warm, dry weather then takes us into March, which was an exceptionally dry and warm month. We actually have a winter, early spring drought across some parts of the country before we get to the beginning of April. There's a fundamental pattern shift with northern blocking developing over Greenland during April 2012, sending us into a very cold and wet pattern for April 2012, and that lasts into the beginning of May. However, we finish May, the final week of May, has a much warmer and drier spell of weather. Actually has a little heat wave, really. Temperatures reach 30 degrees, and we get record-breaking warm temperatures up in the north. And does that herald a warm summer then? Now, speculation at the time. Was that cold, wet April a blip? Did late May sort of tell us we're going to be in for a hot summer? Well, what do you think? Let's go on. So we're beginning on the first day of June 2012, first day of summer. High pressure still more or less in control here, but notice its centre is up across Greenland and Iceland. What tends to happen when you've got northern blocking in the summer, low pressure then starts to undercut underneath it. So the high pressure is there over Greenland, northern blocking, and this area of low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic starts to send weather systems underneath it into the UK. And so we go to the 4th of June 2012 looking cold and wet. I think this is around the period of the Queen's Jubilee celebrations. That was a notably cold, wet and miserable weekend from what I can remember. Trevor Hardy writes about this month has a central in temperature of 13.5, which is below average. And he also writes very low average pressure, one of the 3 most cyclonic Junes on record, after one of the most anticyclonic Marches on record, of course. One of the coldest, wettest and dullest Junes on record. It was the coldest June since 1991. The highest maximum temperature of the month is just 28.6 degrees, which is pretty low, really pretty disappointing. High maximum for June, and that occurs at Swanscombe in Kent on the 28th during a very brief warm spell at the end of the month. The minimum temperature this month is on the 5th of June, minus 3.5 at Emley Moor in West Yorkshire. The maximum temperature on the 3rd of June was just 6.5 degrees. Incredibly cold, wet and miserable day. I think, again, that is at Emley Moor in West Yorkshire. Rainfall this month averages out at 157.3 millimetres, 231% of average, making it the equal wettest June on record with 1860. So this June is actually even wetter than June 2007. Sunshine is just 64% of average. It's the dullest June since 1990. Very, very poor month. So basically, it's the coldest June since 1991. It's the dullest June since 1990. And it's the joint wettest June on record with 1860. Incredibly grim month, and hardly a surprise with all of this northern blocking going on to our north in the northern latitudes, allowing these areas of low pressure to just roll in underneath it. Look at that on the 8th of June 2012, absolutely horrendous. 985 millibar area of low pressure over top of the country. I mean, that wouldn't look out of place kind of in the middle of winter. To get that in June, on the 8th of June, that is really, really grim, bringing copious amounts of rain and gale or even severe gale force winds some parts of the country. That low pressure exits away to the east on the 12th of June 2012, turns the winds into the north, so it perhaps dries out a little bit, although it will still be showering, but still cold. However, that's not the end of the low pressure, because look at this 14th, more low pressure is waiting out to our southwest. All the time we continue to have this northern blocking sitting up to our northern, so you've guessed it, this low pressure attacks from the west. It's an attack of the low pressure combining with the northern blocking to lock us into this extremely wet, cold, windy, miserable pattern for the 15th and into the 16th of June. Again, that low pressure stuck over top of the country, bringing just further bouts of heavy rain and really low temperatures as well. Widely with these areas of low pressure, we're seeing 25 millimetres of rain, an inch of rain with each of these individual areas of low pressure. And so you can imagine the rainfall totals are really clocking up, and we don't really get much change even into the third week of the month. It stays unsettled, maybe not quite as horrendously unsettled as it is in the first half of the month, but nevertheless it's still a really unsettled pattern, still low pressure out to the south and west, bringing further showers if not longer spells of rain. 23rd of June, another low pressure is rattling in from off the Atlantic, and then you get to 25th, just signs of the high pressure. The Azores High, which up to this point has been very much absent. The Azores High is trying to build a little bit of a ridge to our southwest. And so we do get some slightly warmer temperatures right at the end of the month. As I say, the highest temperature for this month is 28.6 degrees, occurring on the 28th of June. As this high pressure just ridges into south, starts to try to pull up some warmer air from the south. There's the upper air temperature on the 27th. They are looking warmer. Hot air is across France, Spain and Portugal. But as ever with an unsettled summer, when it does try to turn warmer, it's going to be very unstable warmth. It's going to be very volatile. And so all this warmth does, yes, it does warm up the temperature, the upper air temperatures and the surface temperatures a little bit, but it also then starts to generate low pressure again out to our west. And so any sort of warmth is going to be accompanied by a rapid increase in humidity, but then rain or thunder. And this is a classic example of that, what you see with these unsettled summers. So we have got the 15 Celsius ice front pushing northwards into southern parts of the country on the 28th. But I mean, very quickly, this low pressure blows up with this unstable, volatile pattern. The low pressure blows up, and very quickly, any warmth or heat is pushed away to our east. So we finish up on the 30th of June, 2012, just looking unsettled and cool, again returning to those westerly winds, and then that takes us into another unsettled month for July 2012. So Trevor Hardy writes about this month, July 2012, cool, dull and wet weather. The most cyclonic, mostly cyclonic month. Overall, the CET is just 15.5, which again, it's below average, 1.2 degrees below average. Rainfall average for England and Wales is 114 millimetres, which is 171% of average. It's also a wet month for Scotland. Mean sunshine is well down, 165 hours, 81% of average, making it the dullest June since 1998. The first half is particularly cool and wet, with low pressure again dominating from off the Atlantic. Here we go again, 3rd of July 2012, low pressure developing out to our west. We're bringing in all of this wet weather from off the Atlantic. 5th of July has low pressure down to our southwest. This is a developing feature, and this turns into a very nasty area of low pressure on the 6th of July 2012. It may not look that dramatic, but this produces a really wet day. So Trevor Hardy writes about this very heavy rainfall on the 6th of July, leading to severe flooding in southwestern England. And also parts of Scotland. I think parts of Wales and Midlands also were affected by severe flooding on this day, 6th of July 2012. From what I remember, I think I certainly recorded over 30 millimetres, probably recorded around 40 millimetres on this day. 6th of July 2012. It stands out because that's day of my mum's birthday. Again, really, really nasty area of low pressure over top of the country. It just hangs around. You see, what happens with these blocking patterns in the summer is that we've got the high pressure blocking out to the northwest. So we've still got elements of northern blocking here, but there's no real thrust from the jet stream to push anything through. So we just keep this low pressure sitting over the top of the country. So yes, we do lose the worst of the rain that we had on the 6th of July 2012, but it remains exceptionally unsettled, really, with further showers or longer spells of rain just dumbbelling around the country with these areas of low pressure. No quick way out of these very unsettled summer patterns when we have these uniquely bad summers. Very often these low pressures do tend to get stuck and just hang around, and that's exactly what happens through the first half of July 2012. Now we're up to the 12th of July 2012, and we've got more low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic. This brings us yet more bouts of rain on the 13th of July 2012. Another thoroughly wet and cool day, southerly tracking jet stream. There's the Azores High. Look how far away from us the Azores High is in this first half of July 2012. It's a long, long way away. It's having no sort of attempt to throw up ridges into the north and west of Europe, and so we just continue to be stuck in this very cool, even at times quite cold and wet pattern as we head into the middle of July 2012. So Trevor Harley writes that the weather improved in the final week, but until that point, very, very miserable month. Upper air temperatures look absolutely atrocious, really, for the middle of July. And we just keep these unsettled conditions going into the second half of the month too, although very gradually we do start to get some ridging building to our south. So as I say, Trevor Harley writes that the weather improved in the final week. 30.0, 86 Fahrenheit, was recorded in several locations in the southeast on this day, on the 24th of July. So not that day, that's 22nd, that's 24th. This day brings the temperature up to 30 degrees for the first time since the second half, since the final week of May. We get the temperature going into the 30s Celsius. That's our high, really, though, for the month. We do see that the upper air temperatures are lifting up even further. So 15 Celsius isotherm is pushing northwards. Finally, something resembling summer here as we go into the closing days of the month. Again, hot upper air temperatures to our south, very warm upper air temperatures into the UK. But again, here we are on the 27th. That's what I was talking about with these hot and stable, with these unsettled and unstable summers. When it does turn warm, when it does turn hot, what will tend to happen is that very quickly you will generate low pressure because of the overall instability of the weather pattern. So very quickly we're beginning to develop low pressure once again. This day, 27th, actually sees temperature going up to 30.7, which is the high for the month at St James in London. But as I say, it's unsettled too. So, I mean, it's not long at all before, again, we're back to low pressure and we're starting to bring much more unsettled air and cooler temperatures too back in from off the Atlantic. And we end July 2012 on what looks like a pretty cool and pretty unsettled note. But Azores, reaching the Azores High, is very rapidly being pushed back southwards again. And then that takes us into August of 2012, the month of the 2012 Olympics, of course, in London. So what can we say about August 2012? Well, it is the warmest month of the summer. has a central temperature of 16.6, so it is a little bit better from a temperature perspective. That's only around average, really. And it's a wet month, however, but quite a warm month. Along with 2009, it's actually the equal warmest August since 2004, but that's really a reflection of how poor the Augusts have been up to this point since 2004. More than anything else. But the main thing is that, again, it's an unsettled month. So low pressure continues to sit to our west. We continue to look very, very unsettled. Indeed, the rainfall for this month is averaged out at 93.5 millimetres. That's 124% of average. So all three of the summer months, June, July and August, above average with rainfall. It's wetter in the northwest, especially in Cumbria, and it tends to be a bit drier down in the southeast. It's quite a dull month again, just 86% of average sunshine. So once again, we continue to look quite unsettled. Low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic again, getting rather stuck with those slow moving but blocked weather patterns. High pressure continues to be out to the northwest of us. There's no real jet stream to push anything through. So again, these low pressure just becoming stuck over the country, bringing further showers or long spells of rain. We do have a go, again, a bit of high pressure there on the 8th of August in 2012. So we have a bit of a go building up some high pressure, and actually by the 10th that does develop into an actual area of high pressure. That's the first time since May that we've had an actual area of high pressure over the country. But by the 12th it's already beginning to slip away to our northeast. Low pressure is already starting to gather itself out to the west, and so we go into this warm but unstable pattern by the 14th. We've got high pressure over Scandinavia, but we've got low pressure out to our west, and we're bringing up sort of an unstable southerly wind. There's more rain with this in the west, possibly thunder in the east, and it just all looks rather unstable, rather volatile. This goes on to the 15th with low pressure then digging into the Bay of Biscay, high pressure over Scandinavia. Certainly it's a warmer pattern because the winds are kind of like southeasterly, so that explains the increase in temperature that we have with the CT. But it's still unsettled. We're still in this unsettled weather pattern with low pressure out to the west and the southwest of us. That's the 16th, looking notably wet and windy. I'm sure this must have been pretty horrendous for Ireland. We do have people watching from both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. I'm sure that must have been a pretty grim old day on the 16th of August 2012. Wet and windy out in the west and the north. Again, we see the wind shifting into the south on the 17th as this ridge tries to build to our southern east, but all the time low pressures out to west. All the time still we have this northern blocking going across Greenland as well. But we do drag up some hotter air into the south here very, very briefly on the 18th. And this, I think, gives us our highest temperature for the month. As Trevor Hardy writes, there's a mid-August heat wave in the far southeast. We get 32.4 degrees, that's 90 Fahrenheit, at Cavendish, Suffolk on the 18th. That is the highest temperature of the month and also of the summer. So despite the fact this is a very grim, very, very grim summer, we do still, at least very briefly, on the 18th of August, get the temperature to 90 Fahrenheit. But it's unstable, it's volatile, and it's not going to last very long. But look at the upper air temperatures. They finally look hotter, especially across southern and eastern parts of the country. Hot air clinging on by its fingertips on the 19th, but by the time you get through to the 20th, 23rd, 21st, 23rd, we start to break that ridge down again, and so that warmer spell through the third week of August starts to give way as low pressure then begins to move back in from off the Atlantic. I suppose for what is an extremely wet, cold and miserable summer, you would expect it to end on a pretty grim note, and there we are on the 25th of August 2012, looking very unsettled again. Low pressure is back in from off the Atlantic. It's turning cold and wet across many parts of the country as we're going into the close days of the month. And actually getting windy in the northwest, so signs of the first sort of gales, perhaps, of the autumn. Taking us to the very end of the summer of 2012, the very end of August, we look like that. So really wet and miserable day again on the 30th. That low pressure clears away on the 31st as a ridge begins to build to our southwest. But winds have turned northerly, and this really gives us real signs of autumn. So the last night of the month is very cold, with Braemar going down to -2.4. And I think many parts of the country actually see temperatures near freezing here on the final sort of night of August and the final night of the summer of 2012. And then finally we go into September, and September 2012 does give us a little bit of summer warmth. Actually, our final sort of warmth of the summer occurs in the opening sort of week to 10 days. This month has a CT of 13.0. It's another below average month. Trevor Hardy writes, it's cool but sunny. Mean temperatures everywhere around 1 Celsius beneath average. Up to this point, we've had a lot of warm Septembers as well. So this is quite a change on a lot of the Septembers that preceded this in the decade before, through the 2000s, late 1990s, 2000s were notorious for really warm summer-like Septembers. This one is a much cooler one with a CT of 13.0, but it does have some warmer weather through the opening week to 10 days or so. So we've got high pressures we regularly do through early September, dominating the weather. It's generally sitting to our west, so it's not particularly warm. But as we get through to the 8th, this high pressure just starts to drift eastwards. We just start to pull up some warmer air from the south. And as we go through to the 9th, well, again, we've got this sort of pattern that we had in the summer. We have got some ridging across Central Europe. We are drawing up some warmer air. But again, because we're still within what is a relatively volatile pattern that we've had all the way through the summer, really, and we still have a legacy of northern blocking, by the way, towards Greenland. Because of that, it's an unstable pattern, and so any warmth that starts to drift up from the south just begins to develop areas of low pressure out to the west of the country. So this day, the 9th of September 2012, does see the temperature going up to 29.3, so really, really hot actually for September, well into the 80s Fahrenheit at Writtle in Essex and also in Cambridge. So just very briefly, we pull up the final sort of push of summer warmth. There hasn't been many pushes of summer warmth with this summer, I have to say, but we do get one final push of summer warmth there on the 9th. But again, so quickly, that just blows up low pressure, and so that warmth is just so quickly swept away by low pressure out to west. And the rest of the month basically is much cooler and unsettled. There's the upper air temperatures on the 12th, for example. The heat has been pushed over towards the Black Sea, and we're in these much, much cooler autumnal type upper air temperatures. Autumn gales on the 14th of September 2012, telling us that autumn is very much on its way, although autumn has basically been with us through most of the summer. And we keep these cool and unsettled conditions going into the second half of the month too. This area of low pressure down across the Azores is very interesting now on the 20th of September 2012. Look what happens with that as we go from the 22nd through to 23rd. That low pressure starts to break northwards from the Azores. I think there's tropical remains in with this area of low pressure. Bear in mind, it's been an extremely active hurricane season while all of this has been going on. Very, very active hurricane season, one of the most active hurricane seasons on record. And a lot of these areas of low pressure, especially as we get through to kind of like August, September, they are containing elements of those hurricanes, and this one I think does contain elements of hurricanes, and it becomes a very, very intense feature there on the 24th of February, bringing heavy rain across many parts of the country from the south. Trevor Harley writes about this September. The first 3 weeks were generally quite dry, but the 24th to the 25th saw one of the worst September storms for 30 years, with very heavy rain and widespread flooding. In this period, there's 131 millimetres of rain falling at Ravensworth, which is in North Yorkshire. And widely, I think, many parts of the country from 23rd to the 24th, and then into the 25th, widely, many places getting like 100 millimetres of rain in southern and western parts of the country. As Trevor Harley writes, it's probably the wettest single spell of September weather since 1981. Again, up to this point, we had a lot of dry Septembers. That's also an interesting factor. There have been very few wet Septembers through the second half of the 1990s and the early 2000s. Many of them, or through the 2000s, many of those Septembers were summer-like Septembers, warm and dry. So this one was a real change, this September of 2012. Cold and average, and also eventually exceptionally wet too, with flooding rains, the like of which we hadn't seen for 30 years. And that's how we finish up on the last day of September 2012, autumn well and truly in. And, well, it's interesting, isn't it, that we have this very wet end to September 2012. It's an unsettled month, it's a cold month. We have so much northern blocking through the winter, and you can see the groundwork being laid then, I think, for the winter of 2012-2013, which was a cold winter, and finished up with our coldest March 2013 since the Victorian era, I think since March 1883. Can see the groundwork for that being laid already as early as a summer, and particularly perhaps during September. One of the things that we do look for when we do our winter updates, we like to look at the autumn weather patterns. One of the things that we think is kind of like a heads up for the chance of a colder winter is very wet and cool conditions in September, particularly if it's accompanied by northern blocking. Right, well, that's it. That is your look at summer of 2012. Started with the winter of 2011-2012, going all the way through to the autumn of 2012. So it's been a bit of an epic. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Hope it brought back some memories. Maybe not very good memories from that summer, but there we go. It's one of our worst summers that we've had in history, I suppose. And we haven't had a summer as bad as 2012 up to this point. We're up to 2019 now. We haven't had a summer as bad as 2012 since 2012. Hope I'm not jinxing anything by saying that. But it's been a while now since we've had an absolutely atrocious summer as bad as 2012. So I suppose at some point we will be due one. Let's hope it's not this summer. Right, enjoy the rest of your late spring Bank Holiday Monday. This video will be placed on or within the historic section at Galsworth, and it'll be given its own page as well. So you'll be able to watch the video on demand whenever you'd like to do that. Enjoy what's left of your late spring Bank Holiday Monday. Video updates will be back to normal at Galsworth tomorrow. So keep checking back. That's all for now, though. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching.